I know that people deem you as an anxiety coach, and it seems like even in your own life, you're not just certified, you're somebody that actually has been through it, right?
And so if somebody were to come to me and say, I can't overcome this chronic illness, I would let them know that you're right. My word is adventure. So anytime I'm sitting in that moment of like, oh, I don't know what's on the other side, or could this be real? Could I overcome this diagnosis? Could I overcome this? Can I be the future me? Anytime I'm in that unknowns, I ask open questions and I get curious and I say, time for an adventure.
All right, guys, welcome to the One Body, One Life podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jason One, lifestyle physical therapist. I like to teach people how to get stronger, become pain-free again, and also in order to change your mindset in terms of being consistent with exercise, not looking always at the past, but always looking forward. Today, I have a very special guest, and as you can see, Aligned with Danita. I love the title, and her name is Danita Young. She is a cognitive behavioral therapist. She's also an NLP, and also she is an anxiety coach. She has gone through many walks of life, from high amounts of success to the very lows. And I'm sure that a lot of people, including myself, can say that life is not all about dandelions and flowers, right? There's going to be these turmoils, these things that can leave people in a very destitute place, or some people can become resilient and be a product of coming out of turmoil. And I think that Danita is one of the perfect people to share that. So Danita, welcome in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Danita, I'm very blessed to have you. And I know we had a conversation. I always say, like, I never just invite anybody onto the podcast. I want to invite people that I vet for, that I feel can provide immense value, but also provide a very powerful message. And so why don't you just share with people a little about yourself, tell them what you do for a living, but also I know you have a very successful background as well in various facets. So I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, to really tell somebody's story, it's really through the highs to the lows, right? Like you only get to a high until you actually experience some sort of lows. And you don't think that going through life. You actually think that like I should just be lucky, or I'm a good person. I should just naturally get this stuff. You don't realize that the polarities of life is really where things are at. So if you're experiencing something in your life right now where you feel like, man, I'm just getting kicked to the ground over and over and over again, well, it just shows that there's really something that you're trying to manifest or be or inspire in the world. And that's just an overview as far as wherever you might be at. But my journey, I was being an entrepreneur is probably one of the hardest things I faced in my life. You go to work and you don't know if you're getting paid. So you really kind of wake up with panic every single day and fear of, can I actually make this work? You're facing all fears of failure, fears of all your limiting beliefs, like what's coming up, what's causing this. So as I was facing my journey, simultaneously, I was opening up the company bootybands.com. And what I experienced at the very beginning stages was extreme highs and extreme lows, like really high, really up. So, you're really feeling like you're on top of the world one minute, and then you're kicked down almost 24 hours away from bankruptcy the next minute. And you're just like, your identity just really, when you don't have an identity, your identity is just going with that whole experience. And so kind of the same thing when you mentioned we're not our diagnosis, right? Like we identify with a diagnosis. Like to me, I was identifying with this brand and thinking it was something I was. And through our journey of life, we're going to find that it's going to completely rip apart our identity so that we become our most authentic self. And that's where I truly believe that real authenticity comes from, is by the complete destruction of this thing called an ego. But for me, it was just really walking and helping people through the weight loss world. Originally, is where I come from. So I started off more as like as your bikini competitor, like national qualified bikini competitor, and was like, wow, a lot of people are starving themselves and not getting enough protein in, and realizing they really didn't have like the right tools. And so initially, I went into it thinking they just need new tools and then they're fine. But I was blindsided as a coach, realizing that no, there's actually a lot more about consistency and motivation and procrastination that was really more of the main problem. And they were really good for 3 weeks, but then they'd fall off for 3 weeks, So there was that issue that I got to really actually see was more of the problem. And I got to see that most people know how to eat healthy. Most people know how to work out. They already know what to do, not on that regard, but they just something energetically was holding them back. And through that discovery, I saw that through weight loss, you had to remove the energetic weight first in order for the physical weight to then come off. And I'm talking sustainably. So as I was experiencing kind of this high-low business, I got to see my clients were also experiencing high, low with fitness. So it was kind of like, what's the commonality here? This is really interesting. And so as I learned that it was the energetic behind it, right? It's the fears, it's limiting beliefs, it's the stress, it's the anxiety, it's the, trauma, it's the loss, it's all these different things that if we don't work through those, we try to just shove those down, then energetically we're carrying this weight and we're trying to just then go into escapism to the extremes. So now as I've been able to find this sustainability and help others through the sustainability process, which truly is more control, I found that it was very similar through addiction, through marriages, through anxiety, through depression, through weight loss. Success all had a common denominator. So I thought that was the most simplest way to really bring on today and just kind of bring things into simplicity of the one that's trying to reach their level of success.
Yeah, I like that. I know that people deem you as an anxiety coach, and it seems like even in your own life, you're not just certified, you're somebody that actually has been through it, right? Being a very successful company with booty bands. And then when you told me that, I was like, yeah, I have some of them in my gym right now. So I was already a fan of your stuff. And then now, then you go through the highs and lows. There's like, hey, you buy new inventory, then all of a sudden, you're not selling as much as you need to. I know that you told me about you wanted to be on this podcast. You had a powerful message to say, and you talked about the freeway analogy. This analogy of like when you're driving forward, is to always be facing forward. Because if you don't face forward, you're not looking at the traffic in front of you. You're going to get into a crash. So a lot of people that, especially the people that we treat, which is people with chronic pain and injuries that they can't resolve, or they identify with the diagnoses, they're continuously looking backwards at their past experiences. They say, hey, I failed this. What makes me think that this next thing's going to work out? I have hurt myself many times. I don't think that I should second guess. I think I should second guess myself and not do this thing, right? So they're living in a state of uncertainty. Can you share a little bit light on how that kind of relates to some of the people that you've helped, especially with, let's say, severe anxiety, the kind of people that no matter how much you tell them they're to look forward, they're always kind of looking backwards, at the mirror behind them.
Yeah, I feel like there's a level of control or a false sense of safety when we're able to look more at our past than our future. Because the future, if you really look at it, is full of unknowns, a lot of opportunities, but a lot of mystery. And our brains actually don't like that, especially the basal ganglia. Basal ganglia is the part of the brain that loves familiarity. And so anything that's not familiar, it likes to resist against that. And it's not you, it's just a part of your brain that's stuck into a survival mechanism. And then once you realize that if you don't gain control over your brain is going to have control over you. And then you're going to find yourself stuck in that Groundhog Day is what I like to call it. But yeah, as far as an individual that is stuck in that way of looking in the past, I always bring individuals to this analogy. I say, what's your greatest accomplishment in life? And they'll tell me, oh, I graduated college, or I got my master's degree, or I was able to make my real estate license, or I rated #1 for 20 years in real estate, or whatever. But their event in their life. And I say, great. So when you imagine from the very beginning to the very end of that event, was it a straight line? And every time, it was never a straight line. I said, okay, so what was it? It was a zigzag, right? It's a zigzag. So what that means is we don't naturally want to go to a zigzag. That means that we go to a point until it's not working, and then we course correct, which is called pivot. And then you course correct again, and then you course correct. Right? So we're going into this place called the unknowns. That's the future in order for things to become an achievement or an accomplishment of any sorts. And that's applicable to somebody that's experiencing a chronic illness. And that's somebody that's experiencing entrepreneurship, to marriage, to alcoholism, whatever it is that you're facing, you're experiencing your future self, which is in the unknown. And so I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. If anybody knows him, he's a neuroscientist that really talks about how to get comfortable in the unknowns, and says it's required in order to get your future self and to gain control over this version of you you're dreaming of. And so if somebody were to come to me and say, I can't overcome this chronic illness, I would let them know that you're right. And they don't like to hear that answer. They don't. All right. But I'm going to be honest with them. I'm going to say, if you're saying you can't, you're going to prove that correct. Then you will be stuck with it forever. And so I'd like to give people the hard truth is that if you continue to keep saying that, then you will be stuck. However, the opposite of that is fake positivity. You know, I have a client that said, well, when I say that I can, it feels like a lie. And I say, well, then you're right. It will be a lie. You're like, damn it, Danita, like give me the truth here. Like, what, how can I break out of this? And I said, well, that's the unknown. That's being curious and being open to the pivot in your life, knowing there's a new person with tools and resources you've never met yet. And if you close yourself off thinking you've tried it all, well, then you'll be stuck. All right. And so you really have to be in that place of exploration. And so my thing is that I recommend how people do that is choose a word that allows you to get excited about your future of unknowns. My word is adventure. So anytime I'm sitting in that moment of like, oh, I don't know what's on the other side, or could this be real? Could I overcome this diagnosis? Could I overcome this? Can I be the future me? You know, anytime I'm in that unknowns, I ask open questions and I get curious and I say, time for an adventure. And you put yourself then into that expanded, excited place rather than a fearful state of the unknowns in the future.
Wow. I feel like I can take away so many points from that, and hopefully people will rewind that, what you just said, over and over again. I mean, it's absolutely true. It's much easier to stay exactly where you are. Like, it's so easy because that's your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is identifying as your chronic illness, letting people know that you're suffering, right? And maybe you love the attention of what people give to you when you're saying like, I'm chronically ill again, right? And whoever is dealing with anxiety, they like, it's not to say that they don't want change. It's just that they're too afraid for change, right? They're not willing to step outside of their comfort zone in order to see that. Big analogy I always use. I even used to have a poster board of this when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, right? Going from corporate physical therapy into my online practice. And it was this huge mountain. And the quote on it was, the hardest climb leads to the best views, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go to Hawaii, I'm sure you have, or like different places, there is this like really treacherous hike. Apparently a lot of people die in Oahu on doing this, and they don't even allow people to go on it. And it's like, you're literally on like the cuff, like you're literally on this bridge where like you're walking and just like step one direction, you can fall off, step another direction, you can fall off and literally like die. And yet you stay on this path. You might trip up here and there, but all of a sudden when you get to the final destination, it's like the most amazing view of everything, right? And in the same fashion is those people with, I guess, the greatest accomplishments, and you're like, how did you achieve X accomplishment? Was it a straight line? And no, it was a bunch of zigzags. It was a bunch of pivots. Sometimes you had to take steps backwards in order to move forward. Sometimes you injured yourself with whatever that you're on, and you had to come back from that injury, come back from the perilous journey. So I just love the way that you explain that. Now, for those that, like, let's say there's a book, and I think maybe you've heard of this book, but it's Magic by Rhonda Byrne. It talks about manifestation, right? Manifesting the life that you want. Now, if you manifest like negativity in your life, nothing's going to change, or things are just going to stay exactly how they are. But being kind of excited about the journey and imagining the life that you could have oftentimes can compel people to take those actions. So I'm just curious on like the thing I'm genuinely curious about that I think will provide a lot of value is the types of exercises or the types of strategies. Like when people are actually working with you, what are some of like the first steps for them to actually start to, I guess, manifest a different version of themselves, or manifest the goals and actually get there with certainty?
Yeah, I would say what I like about starting something is that you can track and measure it, because this is a very unknown territory, which is your internal self, right? Your energetic weight that you're carrying within yourself. And so to me, tracking and measuring it, where you're able to see where you're currently at, to know that if you do make a milestone, that we can celebrate that. Mm-hmm. And so that would be the first thing, is being like, anytime we go down a transformation, whether let's say it's fitness, We get to track and measure to actually see that the body fat's going down and the muscle's going up. Well, there we go. Then we can celebrate these wins. And that's so needed for anybody in a transformation, because when I went into the world initially of manifestation, I had no idea if I was on the right path or not. I woke up every day trying to be like, am I doing it correctly? Because I'm still in Groundhog Day. Like, how do I know what's working? You're really kind of in this gray fog for a little bit. And so the way that I like to track and measure, this is specifically that I do for anxiety or depression, or it could be alcohol. Really kind of works all across the board that I've worked with. But I would say the first one is on a 1 to 10 scale, just rate your belief systems. Like, I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I'm important, I'm good enough, I matter, I'm lovable. And there's 2 parts to that, because you can have the conscious thought, like, yeah, I am. But then you can have the subconscious of like, I don't feel that way though. And so you want to get to the subconscious, which is 95% of you. So think of the thought underneath the thought, and that's going to be the real thought. And so then once you have your rating there, then go to find out what your frequency is at. It's undeniable that we all have a measured frequency about us of the emotions we feel. So if I generally feel fear and grief and shame, well, I'm going to be a very low frequency overall, because those are really heavy emotions. And even though I can't see that, we can feel that from somebody. And that's actually in physics. We can actually measure that. There's a literal measurement of a toroidal field around someone, either if we're pushing people away or if we're magnetizing people to us. It's really going to be determined on that. So then going into what frequency are you? And then the third one I like to use is like, where's your nervous system? Because that just determines what state you are in. You're either going to be in that parasympathetic, which is the expansive state, or you're in the sympathetic nervous system, which is the contracted state. And that's going to determine a lot of your physical ailments. So a lot of people come to me and have physical ailments of heart palpitations or dizziness or pain that's undescribable. Like, nobody can figure out where the pain is coming from, or digestion issues. And I could stay here for days, that doctors can't understand where it originally came from. They're like, I don't know, but look up tension myositis syndrome. Basically what happens is when the body's tense is when that state of the sympathetic nervous system is going to contract the vascular system, which makes the blood pressure go up, or it's going to make the lungs inflate less. And so you're not going to be getting enough oxygen, creating the dizziness, or you're going to be having less oxygen within the muscle. So it's creating that tension myositis syndrome, causing pain within the body that doesn't make any sense to anybody. So we stay in these chronic places. And so those would be the 3 main tests to kind of find out where you're at. Because to me, how do you get to a how until you understand the why?
Powerful. And I think probably read the same book, Mind Body Connection by John Sarno, where he talks a lot about tension myositis syndrome and how people have this, I guess I've always explained it as like, people have like an emotional beaker and they have like a symptom beaker, right? And so emotions is 8 ounces, then your symptoms are 8 ounces too. However, if you outlet your emotions, which is like talking with your friends, potentially you're kind of lowering that emotional beaker because you're able to outlet that to somebody. That's probably where you come into play, where people can outlet things to you and then they can reduce that anxiety, right? But however, if you let the emotions kind of boil over, it spills into the physical beaker, and therefore that's where TMS, or tension myositis syndrome, where their emotional tension starts to manifest itself as physical symptoms. So I love that. Another thing that we both agree on is tracking. Yeah, that's a huge one, because you're taking things that are somewhat subjective, like I'm in pain or I'm in fear, I'm anxiety, and a lot of times it feels very overwhelming and very consuming, to the point where like no matter where you go in the house, like anxiety cloud follows you, right? And so by tracking, by measuring things and making the subjective more objective, it allows you and even my clients to have more justifiable decisions and feel like they're a little bit more in control, when you can kind of put quantities to things and we can mathematize things. So all that I'm in total agreement with. There's a book that I've been reading. I've been telling my wife about it, and I'm sure that you can kind of hit on this too. It's a book called Happier, and it's about like fulfillment, and how people that are anxious, or even people that are seemingly that are unhappy is usually associated with, think of what unhappy is, synonymous to depression, anxiety, things that you're an expert at. One of the things that they talk about was when people are on these very perilous journeys and when they're hitting these very emotional lows, is that a lot of times they perceive that the work that they're doing, whatever aforementioned goal that they have, that they're not even really enjoying the process, right? They're just thinking about the goal. So once they hit the goal, if they're always focused on the goal, let's say they hit that goal, after that, there's this huge emotional high, but then they just go back to their current negative emotional state because they hit the goal, versus those that they feel happy in almost every stage of the mountain, right? They feel happy. And that's where you hit on that too, where you enjoy the process, you enjoy the zigzags, right? And you're like, I'm thankful for the journey that I'm on because I'm trying to aim for this goal. And the goals can always be larger goals at the end of it. So can you describe that to some of our viewers in terms of how, even despite them zigzagging, that in which they can kind of enjoy the entire journey of, let's say, overcoming anxiety or overcoming some sort of illness?
Yeah, I think it's a big shift of, I think the most powerful thing we can do is really take ourselves out of the black and white thinking that we've all been programmed to do. Our brains are like, I mean, I think it's like 5% we're actually really utilizing of our brains, and we get lodged and stuck into that black and white thinking. But perspective shifting is such a fascinating thing. Like, you get to realize, oh my gosh, how little do I really know in this world? Like, there really is so many other tools that I haven't even, a book I haven't read yet, or a person I haven't met yet, a perspective that literally opened me up, or a realization that I've been living a lie this whole time, or, like, just all these cool realizations. But as far as the word happiness, I look at it as, like, for me, in my experience in my life, it was a carrot on a stick that I was chasing with this never ending thing of, well, maybe it's my business, or maybe it's my relationship, or maybe it's a kid, or maybe it's like something outside of me. But we realize that's an internal emotion. That's something that is actually found internally, because if we continue to want to keep chasing it outside, well, then it's a never ending. You can't actually grasp it. Like, you can grasp it for a moment, but then it goes away again.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I had to really change that perspective and go, how can I actually find happiness now? So that becomes my emotional home. And that no matter what it is that I get in my life is now magnetic towards that, because we know like energy attracts like energy. So to me, I worked so much harder than what I should. I was working 80 hours a week, pushing and forcing and trying, and I need to, like, type of desperation in my life, proving energy. And then once you just turn it back, you actually lean back, sit in your chair and go, I don't have to. And then you get to see, you become magnetic. People are like, whoa, I want to be confident like you. How do I be authentic like you? How do I get my business to be as successful as you? And you just go, stop trying so effing hard. And that's really hard for people that have been conditioned in the societal upbringing that we are at, because we all been taught, if you work hard, you'll be able to make it. Well, I worked really freaking hard, but it led me to 24 hours away from bankruptcy and homelessness and desperation and poverty. I'm so confused. I'm a good person and I worked really hard, but I ended up making a lot of really dumb decisions and really out of alignment decisions, because I was operating on, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I don't have value, I have to prove myself. So it was a desperation. And so there's so many analogies, we can kind of have fun with it. But like, one example is, like, I tell this one all the time because people laugh at it, but like, if you go to, let's say you go to a bar, right? And you're single, and you have, this, you're a guy, so I'll just put it into a female context. And you have a girl come up to you, and she is like desperation, wanting to get married and have kids with you with the first day she met you. You're going to be like, what's wrong with you? Why? You don't even know who I am, right? But she's so desperate. Her actions are escapisms or extremes, just because she wants so desperately to have a family, let's say. And so, of course, she's going to keep getting people to push her away, even though she's trying so hard to get the things she wants, right? But instead, if you find a girl that's, like, confident and happy, and she's just sitting in the chair and she's like, I don't need anything in life, I'm freaking happy. Well, we're naturally going to be magnetized to that. We're going to be like, hey, can you tell me why you're so freaking happy and you don't need anything and you're just drinking water over here? And then she's going to say, because happiness is within. I don't need it. And so there's a whole level of shift. I mean, so there's so many examples that we can use in different parts of life, right? But that would be in my experience of world, where happiness really is.
That's amazing. I love that analogy. And again, the book that comes up a lot is Magic by Rhonda Byrne, that when you are going to emit negative energy, there's going to be a lot more things. whether it's like things actually start negatively happening to you, or like what manifesting is that when you actually start attracting the people that you want and the things that you want, and you start to think and act accordingly, is that actually things start happening better to you, or at least at the minimum you start focusing a lot more on the positives. And then when the negatives do hit you, they don't hit you as hard, they don't hit you like an anvil. It kind of hits you as in like, I'm very thankful that these negative things that have happened to me, because without the challenges of life, then I wouldn't feel as fulfilled, right? There's, nobody says that the hero's journey, like that'd be silly to think that the hero's journey is just like one straight trajectory towards success. Is that the hero's journey, like you want the perils, you want the things that happen to you, because that's what makes it feel so much better at the end of the tunnel, right? And I think in terms of anybody's life, that if you're dealing with anxiety, ailments, illnesses, whatever's going on in your life that you feel negative about, is again, think about how you can kind of switch the narrative towards being thankful for a lot of the, I guess, the struggles and the rocks that are being thrown at you. Because without that, if you just had one straight trajectory towards success, it would not feel as fulfilling, right? So that's why God and whoever higher beings are, that is why we are on this earth, is to overcome these anxieties and some of the things that happen to us. I'm sure that you can hit on the next question that I have, which is purpose. Purpose, and people that want to live a purpose-driven life. I think initially, just to tell you about myself, and I think I went through the same things as you, Danita, where when I first started my business during the pandemic, like there were months where I'd be like, oh shoot, got my first sale, great. And then there was months where like, oh, then the pandemic happened, and boom, everyone got scared. Nobody wanted to spend anything, no matter how good my services were. It was like, am I even cut out for this? Do I have to go back to my normal 9 to 5 job? And I was depressed. I think I got pale. I think I lost 14 pounds of muscle. Horrible. I couldn't even leave my bedroom. And my wife was like fearful for my mental health. But then I started thinking about, well, if I really focus on the financial aspects, I think what I'm attracting is just money, right? So like negative things like not making sales hits you a lot harder than it actually should, when you should be still thankful for the fact that I have a roof on top of my head, I have a beautiful wife, and I have a very important skill that I want to share with people, which is helping people with pain. So I'm curious on like, do you use somewhat of like how purpose can be the thing that kind of drives them away from their anxieties, or like how would you use purpose for a specific client in this situation?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, yeah, we have a lot of similar beliefs, and sometimes I like to debate people, but I can't even debate you over here. We're just too similar over here with as far as our, and that's what's great about it. You realize that success really does kind of have a certain structure to it. It's great. We don't have to sit and keep tracing this thing. But to your point of purpose, I found it's the same thing as happiness. A lot of people are trying to think of, what is this job that's going to lead me into my greatest purpose? Well, again, it's not something that's outside of you. So many people are trying to look for this grand, ginormous, magnificent thing called purpose, when really actually it's something super subtle and super small inside of you, such as just being a good listener. A good listener can actually make an individual feel seen and heard. If an individual feels seen and heard, they feel safe. If somebody feels safe, they're ready to change. If somebody's ready to change, you change their life. That's a massive freaking skill set. Like, it's a massive purpose, a gift, you know? And so what I like to do is I have a lesson. I sit down with people and show them, what are the compliments that people give you all the time? Oh, that I make them feel comfortable. Well, is that a gift? Yeah, now that I think about it. You know, and so sometimes we've been searching on this carrot on a stick, just constantly looking for something outside of us. It's all inside of us this entire time. It really is. And until you get to that moment, you're just like, whoa, boom, like it hits you where you're just like, what have I been chasing? This thing really does exist inside here. And so, you know, I find that when I found my gift, it was, I see an individual underneath the shell. I don't see their ego. I don't see their limiting beliefs. I don't see their restrictions in their life or whatever it is. I literally see just them as they are, as a perfect human being that's just covered with a bunch of crap. And so my gift is I can see through all that, and I can pull out the real version of them really quickly. And so when you get to see that your gift is something so small, but yet so freaking powerful, So, but your point as far as even going back to how do we know it's a good day if we've never experienced a bad day? You're 1,000% right that we have to go through polarities in life. If you're trying to be one of the greatest, successful, accomplished individuals, well, then you're going to have to experience its opposite for you to even know what that is. And that was a big realization for me because I wanted to impact the world. And so here I am going through suicidal thoughts and depression and anxiety and homelessness and just complete raw bottom, basement to rock bottom. There's by the way, there's basements to rock bottom, you guys. I'm just letting you know. Okay. And once you get there, I kept asking God, like, why am I here? Why am I here? And he goes, well, you wanted to impact the world, right? And I said, yes, I do. I want to impact the world. Why am I here? And he goes, how can you impact the world if you can't relate to anybody to pull them out? Oh, touche. I guess it was all actually very purposely driven that I needed to experience what it felt like so that when I have a client, they tell me their moments, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been there. I know what that feels like. Let's pull your ass out. Let's go. Right. And I think one of the greatest things is these certificates, nothing. Certificates means nothing. It's the experience that you've been through in your life is going to the most value you can give someone. Where does value? That is money, that is success, that is purpose. I mean, your experience is so key. And so I love this quote. It was somebody said, if you ever feel like a pile of mush with a blanket wrapped around you, well, perfect. That's exactly the phase of a butterfly that goes through the chrysalis phase, where it's like literally wrapped up in a blanket and it's turned into mush. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly where I've been. Yeah.
Yeah. I think to summarize that, I think the biggest point, and I'm thankful that you said that, because sometimes I forget about it too, was a lot of times we're looking for purpose, but we're not looking inside. Instead of we're looking for like external gratification, or we're looking for things outside of it. So, analogy for entrepreneurs out there is we're looking for the Rolexes, we're looking for the watches, and that's like our status, right? So once I gain that, that's happiness right there. When in fact, when you really ask the harder questions on like, what am I here for? Or maybe you're asking your friend about like, what are the compliments? What are the things about me that make that why are you my friend? And a lot of times you ask your friend that question over and over again, like what? No, but why are we friends, right? And they actually start to peel the layers of the onion to the point where like, well, it's because you're always there for me when my dad was dying. And you start to see like the inner workings of like why people like you. And a lot of times when you're asking your best friend or your mom or whoever, like, what is your, you don't ask them straight up, like, what is my purpose? Because they're not going to answer that for you. But when you start to hear the compliments back to you, they peel the layers of the onion for you. And I found this from Simon Sinek, a Canadian author. He said, know your why. And he says like, yeah, ask one of your best friends, what are the things about you that like, why are you guys friends? And they can start to tell you like what you're good at and like what makes you human, like what is your purpose. And I just, again, the fact that you said that instead of like looking for like the external things that might make us happy, just start to look more like at the things inside of you, and you'll start to really find that it doesn't matter how many bad things happen to you, that nobody can take away your identity. Nobody can take away the fact that you have a specific driven purpose. And I've said this before too. It's like somebody could be making $20,000 as a janitor and be perfectly happy cleaning people's toilets and all that and feel absolutely fulfilled. There's this nomad that makes $18,000 on a blog site, and he just connects to various internets like all over the world, cafe, and he just blogs about his life that he lives in a car, and he just goes to different national parks. And yet he is like you could see in his pictures, he's the happiest person in the world, making 18K per year. And this is a real story, versus these people that are millionaires and billionaires, and they feel like they're the most destitute people in the world. Like, it's amazing. And I think that's because those type of people are looking whether you're really driven by your financial health, and deep inside you're actually suffering internally. So I really love this part of the podcast, because you really hit on a very powerful point. I guess that kind of goes to my next point around the people that I treat are oftentimes busy moms, right? And I'm sure you've treated moms and dads. And there's this word here, everybody knows this, perfectionism, right? And they're in this all or nothing mentality. It's like, I either have 60 minutes to work out or else nothing, right? And they just sit at home, get on social media, and then there's just this constant battle and this constant guilt of like, not working out, not taking care of my health, taking care of the kids, not working out more, right? How do you define, I guess, perfectionism? What is the relationship between anxiety and perfectionism?
Well, anxiety to me just means tension. So I like to simplify anything that's out there, because when it gets convoluted and complicated, it feels like, what the heck is this thing? So my visual on anxiety is like, you imagine a box and you stick somebody in the box, and they have this desire to just be and become and purpose and more and live and fulfilled, and all these desires, right? But then the walls of the box is going to be things like fear of failure, or I'm not worthy, or I don't have enough value, or I've got past loss that I haven't worked through, or I've got things that the society has, I think society is, right? So you have these walls built around you, and as those are pushing in, validating themselves daily, because that's what going around the neurological pathway loop so many times is doing, is it's validating them. Oh, here's another reason why you're not good enough. Here's another reason why you're not smart enough. Here's another reason why you're a failure, And so when it validates, it just continues to close in every year, just just shrinking. But this other part of you is like, but I hear the podcast from Jason. I know that there's meant for more, and I know I need to be positive, and I know I need to be in gratitude. I know I need to push out of this thing. So what they do is they try to push against that with this thing called gratitude or new beliefs and manifestations. But then that wall's still there. And that's when you think about this conflict, these two arrows coming towards each other, is the building of the resistance. And anything that's in resistance and tension is what's going to create something called anxiety. Because anxiety cannot exist without tension or resistance. And so that's why I love working with people with anxiety, because I'm like, well, I know how to break the walls. Do you know how to set yourself free? Are you ready? And they're like, yes, get me out of the walls. And I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden they're like, I feel unstoppable. I feel like I just want to crawl on my rooftop and just start screaming my purpose. And I'm like, you're there. And I love it, because they're just in a box for too long, but they were meant to inspire the world. They were meant to change the world. They were meant to be something really big. But the people that are okay being in the box are not meant to be inspirational. And it's okay. I call it, we have small trees and big trees. That's okay. Not everyone needs to. But the people with anxiety are my biggest superheroes in life that just need to be set free. And so, to your point of perfectionism, going back and circling around here to the whole point now, immediately if I hear perfectionism, I go, fear of failure. Boom. That is your fear. And then I also would go, there's a limiting belief in there. Okay. So I know that there's two walls that's holding that person back. And so what I do is I face that stuff, because you can't skip past the wall. You can't just fake positivity that wall. You can't just manifest that wall away. No, you have to bulldoze that wall over, and you have to go towards that thing. And once you do, you're going to find, after you face all fears, there's literally freedom on I promise you, I will literally swear I am whatever you want me to swear. I don't promise a lot. My clients know this. I don't promise until I know something to be so true. And when you face a fear cognitively, you don't have to go through it actually, technically, physically, but cognitively, as you face it, you will find on the other side is so much freedom, truly. And what's great about that is this energetic weight you were holding before. All of a sudden, I hear people go, it's almost laughable now. And I'm like, I know. Can we laugh it off now and get rid of that? Because you're not meant to have this fear of failure, because what the hell is failure? Failure means stop, give up, never try again, lay in bed the rest of your entire life, stare at the ceiling, and literally have bed sores because you're not going to ever try again. Do you think you can lay in bed the rest of your entire life and never try again? No, because most people that have fear of failure are my biggest type A, like very hardworking, super strong individuals. That's why they have the fear of failure. And I'm like, no, failure actually just really means pivot. That you're just doing a zigzag. It just means to stop doing the thing you were doing, and now it's trying to adjust. What if there was no such thing as failure? What would that do to your perfectionism? You start to the biggest thing is it's not going to be negative thinking and it's not going to be fake positivity. But when you take somebody out of the box of thinking into a complete different perspective shift, changes their world completely.
Wow. The quote that I got from Hermosi, you guys know who Alex Hermosi is, because I kind of watch his stuff about mindset and he talks about business. But one thing that I'll never forget is he says, like, what is learning? And sometimes it's like, duh, like, my kid learns in school. It's like we should know. But when you really, it's very hard to define. And people know what learning is. But when you say it in a way that he said learning is same environment, same behavior versus and that's maintenance. That's complacency. That's just kind of staying the same. But like what truly learning is like same environment, different behavior. You're continuously trying to up level yourself. You're continuing to try to learn from the pivots. Failure ways to success, right? Setbacks are just a part of the equation. You cannot have success unless you've had setbacks, right? So, and when it comes down to it, is when you bring in also like habits and consistency, right? And something that all about is that some people, they just got to put in the reps. You just got to become 1% better daily. Every single day, whether you make a mistake or if you go to the gym and all of a sudden you tweak something, do you just give up and you just leave the gym, or do you learn from that experience and you just get back on and say, hey, I'm going to learn. My body's resilient, my mind's resilient. I'm going to learn from this experience, tighten up my form, brace my abs harder, right? And start owning that exercise. So I can't speak enough to those perfectionists. And I have to get myself out of that, where 4.0 GPA student, right? Never, hardly make a mistake. And sometimes the parenting around like, you're so smart, you're so good, right? You're getting validated for that. And all of a sudden, boom, you hit this moment in life where you don't feel like you're as smart as you thought you were, that your parents said you were. And all of a sudden now you're going through a stage of depression. I mean, that happened to me. I'm sure that's happened to you, Danita, after seeing the highest of success with your company to going into bankruptcy. I mean, I cannot imagine. And I guess I can imagine that because that's actually happened to me before. But anybody that's a perfectionist, just understand that it is a part of the journey to experience these setbacks, these turmoils. But the ones that are resilient, the ones that bounce back from adversity, are the ones that are going to come out on top. This one's a good question I always ask, and this one's great for you, is that you've been through anxiety, you've been through depression, you've been through the lows. What is one piece of advice or one form of action that you would give to your younger self if you were to speak to them? Let's say 5, 10, 20 years ago, when you're starting your business. What is that one piece of advice?
I would say start studying Albert Einstein a lot sooner. Yeah, there's a quote by Albert Einstein that says, everything is energy. That's all there's to it. All you have to do is match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It's not philosophy, it's physics. And so to me, I spent so long in this like self-developmental space, and where I really found my success was like the true, like real law of like as real as gravity was. Once I really learned that everything is frequency, and really learning that the power's within and that's where our frequency's at, and that everything magnetizes with that like energy attracts like energy, I could have saved at least 20 years on my life for sure if I would have understood that quote more. So I would just say, hey, just skip all the books, skip all the little fluffy stuff, and just go right after Albert Einstein. He'll change your life. And I'll be like, oh, okay.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. There's nobody that's perfect, and me as a coach, physical therapy, teaching other people about pain, I go through my own pains. The pains of raising 2 children, the fears and the anxieties of saying that, oh, they're when at this stage, a lot of your kids prefer mom. And I go through these identity things of like, am I ever going to be good enough to be just as good as mom, right? Will they ever love me as much? I go through phases of like, when I'm going through that, then all of a sudden my business is going down, and all of a sudden I'm less consistent in my workouts. It's like, it's amazing how one little shift in like, oh, me being uncertain about my role as a father led to all these other things that started going wrong with my life, right? Or I started to focus on those things. Then once I realized that, like, I just loved them to death. It doesn't matter who's number 1, who's number 2. And I'm sure hopefully this can relate to parents too, is that I really just started to love unconditionally. I just started to spend way more time with my child, taking to playgrounds, embrace just every little bit of who they are. Embrace the five senses. I always talk about senses, that like when you want to be more present, just start thinking about the environment around you. Start feeling it. What does your environment smell like? Does it smell like garbage, or does it smell like flowers, right? Start tasting what the air tastes like, right? Ground yourself. What does your feet feel like? When you start to engage the five senses, you become more grounded and less likely to, quote unquote, like look backwards at the traffic behind you. And I really just started to be present. And all of a sudden, guess what happened, Danita? Everything started going well. My role as a father, I was way more positive, way happier. I started to make more money, started to make more sales. I got way more consistent with my workouts and my nutrition. And then, you know what? We're going on vacation tomorrow because I did so well this month that now we're just going to go take a quick vacation. It's speaking from personal experience on the fact that my own anxieties and the way I perceive my life and the way that I was manifesting it, attracting all these negative electrons and all this negativity, led to everything in my life cascading in the wrong direction. And yes, I pivoted by reading more books, listening to your stuff, Nina. I started to just become just a better version of me. I started to become happier. And all of a sudden, like I said, that frequency, I started to attract the right things in my life. And I think that I don't know who's listening right now, but whatever you're going through, just understand that like the negatives, if you start to let the negatives outweigh the positives, right? You're going to start attracting more of that to your life. And therefore you're going to become more anxious, more depressed, and you're going to dig yourself your own hole. But nonetheless, you can agree, no matter how big the hole is, you can always dig yourself out of it, right? There's never a point, and there's never a time in your life where you can't say that, like, you can't dig yourself out of the hole, right? God said this before too. It's like, God will not tempt you beyond what you can normally bear, right? He will always give you a fighting opportunity to bounce back from adversity and to get back to the things that you want to manifest in your own life. So, anyways, Danita, I feel like I took some of your spotlight just now, but to give you back the spotlight, is there any one final message that you would give to our viewers right now that would hopefully either one, hit home for them, something that they can take home, or two, that would compel them to take the actions necessary for them?
Yeah, absolutely. As a gift to listeners, I love to give value to the world, because I truly believe that when we give value, value comes back, just as the law of reciprocity. And for me, I just like to help people with that tracking and measuring to make it tangible for them so that they can actually see it. And so I will leave Jason here a link that says callitdanita.com. You can just go on there, have a 15-minute call with me, and I'll just show you where you're at. And then that will give you such a visual, and it'll make sense as to like why things are happening. You'll be like, oh my gosh, no wonder why I'm stuck in this place, And then when you have that, you'll have a system to be like, okay, here's how to break free. Here's the walls that are technically holding you back from it. So callitdanita.com, and I'd love to sit down with you guys and give you a free assessment.
That's amazing. I would honestly take you up on that, right? If I was hitting the lows and I wasn't the coach I am, I would definitely be calling in a heartbeat. And I think that anybody that is listening that has any forms of anxiety, fear-related things, distress, something that you feel like you can't overcome, you're not alone, right? Always never suffer alone. I always say that. That's why community's here. That's why Danita's here, and myself. So again, I'll leave that link in the description so that people can take advantage of that 15-minute consult. And trust, I think that Danita is one of the perfect people to help with at least providing like a roadmap or some sort of strategy to get you moving forward. So with all that said, thank you, Danita, for your time and your expertise on my podcast. And for anybody that's listening right now, definitely I'll leave you always with this quote. And hopefully this quote hits for everyone, is that we only have one body, one life. Make every action you take be one that makes you a better version of you. So thank you, Danita. And hopefully we'll be having more conversation from here. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks. Nice again to have me on. Appreciate it.